Japanese made us do it. Me and Matt are back. How are you, Matt?
Pretty good. So yourself?
I am very well, yes. Very well. Looking forward to completely butchering a load of Japanese names today. Because it's going to happen.
I like to think I'm better at the Japanese names than some of the like Eastern European names and stuff, but
that's true.
I'm not holding my breath.
No, I feel the same. A lot of the names I've heard said a lot of times before in the past, so I'm kind of like, hopefully I can. But if we butcher them, we butcher them. Sorry, we'll try our best. Yes. What can we do? Yes. Oh, sorry, go on.
I was just gonna say, well, I mean, the director's easy, and Dr. Koei is pretty easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or Dr. Yamane, sorry.
I think it's Yamane.
Yamane. Oh, of course it is. It's Yamane, isn't it?
Here we are.
Already it starts. Well, I was going to say Takeshi Shimura, who obviously was in I was going to say most famously Seven Samurai, but I would guess probably a lot of people would also know him from Ikaru as well. So
yes. So of course today we are talking about Godzilla, 1954's Godzilla, not King of the Monsters.
No.
Which I had to check with you yesterday because I suddenly thought, I was like, did we have that discussion? I was like, I don't remember whether we said we were doing the original or the American version.
Yeah, the original.
Original from 1954.
Yeah. I haven't actually seen I haven't seen this for donkey's years.
Sure.
But I also haven't seen the re-release with the American stuff in since I was very little, so I do not remember how much was added and how much was changed.
They removed pretty much any reference to atomic bombs and that the nuclear stuff. A lot of that's been removed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Raymond Burr is in it. Is it Raymond Burr? I think?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, Raymond Burr. I remember.
Like
Raymond
really
Burr's
awkwardly in a room, pointing at maps and stuff. A lot and just saying, "Here's Godzilla's here now, and now he's over here." Yeah.
One of the other ones later on does that as well, isn't it? The American bits are all just like guys sat in an office going, "This is a map of Japan. This is a map of the world. This is where it's like, right, okay, can we just get back to the story,
you're right, actually, because in King of the Monsters, he is actually supposedly there reporting live, so there's a bit more action from him there, but I've not watched that version, which is why I asked you yesterday, because I was like, oh god, if we're doing King of the Monsters, I haven't watched that for a long time. I mean, it was the only version we had when we were kids.
Well, that's the thing, is that I think that was one of the ones that I watched quite early.
Yeah.
And I didn't watch this version until like well into my teens.
Yeah, I don't think this version was available properly until like the 2000s.
No, I don't think so.
I'm pretty sure. I think like BMI or someone put it out.
Yeah.
In the 2000s.
I think I probably would have got a bootleg
BFI,
copy from somewhere, or I would have gone.
Yes, you went the anime route of bootlegged.
Yeah, or we would have gone to. Me and Dave used to go to like London quite a bit, and we used to buy like anime and because he had a player that played all sorts of stuff and like VCDs, good old VCDs.
VCDs.
So I think
I still have a VCD.
Copy on a VCD.
I still have one VCD. I have Reign of Fire on VCD. It's the only VCD I still own.
Fire, my God.
And I only own it because it's like the novelty of having a VCD, I think. It's the main reason I've kept it this long. Yeah.
I think all of mine would be like Hong Kong movies and...
sure.
And ropey Japanese sort of... not sitcoms, like shows, sort of really weird shows that you just couldn't get over here.
Yeah. So yes, I guess we're both of the same background now. We both saw King of the Monsters first as kids, I guess, and then later into sort of late teen adult life, we got our hands on 54 Godzilla. The original. Directed by Ishiro Honda, and kind of also Eiji Tsuburaya, kind of.
Yeah.
The special the way Toho had things set up, and it might be the way that Japan has things set up, is that although you had your director, Ishiro Honda was the director of the film, when it came to special effects, the special effects director or coordinator was very much in charge of all the special effects and how it looks and how that works.
Yep.
So it's kind of they kind of both both
yeah,
both directed.
I think so. I think that's fair to say.
I think Honda had like the final say on what scenes are kept and what scenes are dropped and that kind of stuff. So I guess
he'd have been boss. So
yes. So I mean, do we want to just jump straight into this? Have you got anything you want to sort of talk about before we get into it about the movie?
No, I think we started off with talking about when we saw it and stuff. Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay. So a fishing ship is
well, we should say.
Well, we don't know it's a fishing ship yet, but we
should say starting with that tune. I mean,
the Ifukube score. Yes, on the black.
That has been. I watched it the other day, and that tune has been stuck in my head ever since. I've just been walking around the house going. Da, 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 da.
It honestly is one of the best scores ever. I'm biased, but also, honestly.
I mean, it proves how good it is because they've kind of pretty much used it in some form or another ever since, really.
Certainly, it's appeared in practically every Godzilla movie I can think of. I'm sure there are some where it hasn't, but not many. And yeah, I mean, the thing I really love as well is that the black, white text on black background opening, even before the score, when you just hear the footsteps and the roars, and then the theme kind of fades in. It's an amazing opening.
Yeah.
And it's something that I think they kind of they've kind of homaged that a lot in more recent Godzilla movies. Certainly Shin Godzilla does the same sort of thing.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think it uses the classic roar as well in that opening. But yeah, it's a really powerful opening.
Yeah.
And then of course we cut to this doomed Japanese freighter. We later find out is a fishing freighter, but at the moment it's just a freighter in the ocean. And
this of course was like one of the actual things that this was based on a real incident.
Yeah, the Lucky Dragon number 5 incident.
Yeah, so they basically got irradiated by nuclear testing when they thought they were in a safe zone and they really weren't, because I think they miscalculated how far the damage from this testing would go.
Yeah. So it was a test in at Bikini Atoll, wasn't it? 1954, and 23 crew members contaminated with nuclear fallout. I think they also used this in Gareth Edwards' Godzilla, don't they? They show that test at the start of the movie.
Yes, I think they did.
I think that's also because obviously we will find out here that it was the nuclear testing that awakes Godzilla. And in Gareth Edwards' version, I think it's this. In the Gareth Edwards version, they say they were trying to kill it, weren't they, with nukes in the atoll? But
I think that's what they were trying. They say yes.
Yeah. But yes, so they're minding their own fisherman business when suddenly there's a big light, just a light in the ocean, and that's how we're introduced to Godzilla. It's a mysterious light that suddenly basically sets the boat alight and sinks it.
Yeah.
And shortly after that, obviously, the boat is reported missing, and they've been unable to contact it. It fell silent very suddenly, so they send another boat to go and investigate.
Yeah.
And that ship also suffers the same fate. But there are survivors this time around.
Yeah.
So
and I think this is where we're introduced to is it Ogata, is it?
Yeah, I think we meet Ogata here briefly because he wakes up with Emiko and basically says, "I can't make the date today."
They're going to see
a
concert, aren't they?
Yeah, and he's like, "You just go by yourself. It'll be fine."
Yeah, he works for a salvage company.
Yes. We were talking last week, funnily enough, Godzilla vs. Kong, how sort of two-dimensional all of the characters are, and this is one of the few Godzilla movies where they have 3 or 4 really strong characters, really strong.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think all of them actually are
I think
really
one of the biggest difference I think that you could say in this is I actually care about all these characters. They all
Absolutely.
pretty much feel like real people and not just,
Yeah.
you know,
And
terrible
amazingly,
ciphers.
I think probably the best character in Godzilla history is in this film, and he's only got 3 scenes in Sarazawa. Who absolutely steals the show, despite being in it like literally 3-4 scenes maximum, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah,
and
when we're introduced to him as well, he's like he's seeing off the sailors, isn't he, on one of the voyages?
Yes.
And he just looks completely Bond villain.
Yeah, he really does, doesn't he? Although he's
the
not,
eye patch
he's the opposite.
And scarring and.
Yeah, he turns out he's the opposite of a Bond villain, but he really does look like he should be a Bond villain. So a fishing boat also gets destroyed, and a survivor is washed up on shore. I think it's Odo Island, isn't it?
Odo Island, yeah.
Yeah, and the press get hold of this.
And I like you get the old fisherman on Odo Island, and you get the old man who's like saying about
it's Gojira,
it's Gojira, and he's gonna come because we might have to sacrifice a maiden. You're like, what the fuck? Really?
Yeah. So in the past of the island, they always blamed bad fishing years or years where there were no fish on Gojira, this mythical. Well, not mythical to them. They believed that there was this elder creature living in the ocean, and they would routinely send out girls on rafts into the ocean to die as sacrifices to Gojira in the hope that he wouldn't come ashore. And of course, the other villagers, the younger villagers, kind of mock him for this, and but of course, he's right. So,
yeah, totally right.
He gets the final laugh. Well, he doesn't get. No one gets any laugh in this movie, actually, to be honest with you.
Not really.
But of course, reporters soon arrive because they've discovered the news of this survivor has reached them, the reporters told there is something in the sea. We're not getting any fish. There are no fish. This fishing, I believe, the Odo Island is like based around fishing. That's how they survive.
Pretty much all it is. Yeah, exactly. It's pretty much like most of those like little islands and stuff. It's pretty much all just fishing.
Yeah. So
or it was, and anyway.
Yeah, certainly back then. I don't know whether it is now. I guess. But yeah. So basically, yes, they're all starving, unable to make money because the fishing is completely dried up.
They have like a little festival-y thing, don't they? Oh, or
yes.
Does that come a bit later? Does the festival-y thing come a bit later?
I think it's now because it's while they do their it's kind of like an exorcism, isn't it? It's the last of their rituals from the old times still around. They don't sacrifice people anymore, but they do have this exorcism thing, and it's kind of a theatrical performance. That they're doing later that night when I think it's a huge storm hits the island. I think it's like I guess it's like a hurricane or something hits the island.
Yeah, typhoon thing.
And it causes massive damage to the island, to the buildings, the structures. The reporter's helicopter is destroyed, but very briefly, someone sees the leg of Godzilla.
Yeah,
and I love the slow introduction to Godzilla in this movie. You see the mystery, and then you see a bit more, and then finally we see the whole thing.
It's earned in this movie.
It really is. Yeah,
it's one. It's kind of almost the first of its kind. I mean, not including sort of Kong and stuff.
Yeah, but it's that sort of 20,000 fathoms as well.
Yeah. So we you've got a really good sort of build up, and it earns its sort of its mystery. And you basically you get like a family home, don't you, with like the mother, father, son, and basically Godzilla crushes the house. The kid goes outside to sort of have a look, and the mother, father says, "Don't go outside," and that basically saves him. He gets he survives. They unfortunately do not.
No, they don't. It basically crushes the village, and they they send a paleontologist, which is Yamane, Mr. Yamane, as opposed to Emiko Amane, who they goes to lead an investigation, and they discover huge footprints in the sand.
I love this. Like he's like they find a trilobite, and the guy says to him, "Don't pick it up with your bare hands. It's irradiated." And he just nods and goes, "Yeah, okay." And he picks it up and puts it in a box.
Whatever.
I
yes, so they determine that it is all it's radioactive. But then, of course, the village rings the bell. The alarm is rung as villagers rush with it's that. Well, I guess with a twist, it's the Frankenstein mob scene with a twist. Where we get
like the whole village. They got like rifles and shotguns and swords, absolutely. And they all go up to the sort of they all gather and they all got the hill, and then. But then
instead of finding one Frankenstein, one regular-sized Frankenstein, they find like 120-foot Godzilla and think better of it.
I love that the shot of him coming over the hill sort of thing. The head is fantastic. I think the puppet is worse than the suit.
The puppet didn't have much movement, unfortunately.
No, the worst thing about the puppet is the arms. The hands are a little too diddy.
Yes.
Whereas when you see the actual suit, it's much, much better. And I still think this is actually one of the better suit designs.
I love this design. Yeah,
it holds up a lot better than some of the later ones, like the one with the pig nose and stuff. And
yes, I mean different era, because obviously they tried to make it more child friendly in the Showa era. So that was you get the big goofy eyes then and all that kind of stuff. It's very this is a very dark, serious film, but I agree it's one of the best designs. I mean it is the iconic design, really. I have favourites over it, but I can't deny that this is the,
of course, Well, as we said last week, our favourite is the sort of the catty looking one.
Yeah, Heisei
with the little ears.
Yeah. For sure.
I love that one. That's my favourite.
And again, it was rubbish for fighting, so you didn't get much of the monster on monster fighting. No, it was much spamming atomic breath and lasers, but it looks so cool. I love that design so much. But yeah, it's an iconic design, and this was this shot was actually, I believe, it wasn't a miniature. It was they basically cut the film and basically put him in that shot. Rather than building a miniature. And when you consider when it was made, it looks amazing, because a lot of those sort of faked shots look terrible. And for 54, it's really impressive.
I mean, they originally were thinking of using stop motion for Kong and stuff.
It was and cost, wasn't it, I think.
Basically there was two factors. One, it was going to be three, I suppose. One, they didn't have enough good stop motion animators in Japan.
Yeah.
Two, it would have cost too much. And three, they figured out that it would have taken 7 years to complete.
Yeah.
So in the end they just said, we'll use a suit. There is a couple of stop motion shots. I think the one when there's a fire engine that goes over later on. I think that's stop motion. And I think there's a couple of bits with the tail, I think, are stop motion as well.
Yeah, very few though. I mean, this tokusatsu was kind of around in Japanese theatre, but this is kind of, I believe, one of, if not the first film that really started modern cinematic tokusatsu. It's I'm so glad they didn't do the stop motion, which is really rare that I would ever say that about a film. But it gives it its own feel, doesn't it? The Japanese tokusatsu Godzilla films are so unique for that, and obviously then Ultraman and everything else that followed. But it just gives it a very distinct feel, and it separates it a lot from Kong, which is another wonderful film we should probably talk about one day. But and this actually as well, this was something I was thinking last week when we were doing Godzilla vs. Kong, and I was thinking there was something, because you said, I actually really like 2014's Godzilla, and I said, yeah, I agree. I like there are bits of that film I really like, and there was something I meant to say, and I just couldn't think what it was. Like, you know, when you kind of lose your thread, and you're like, what was I going to say?
Happens to me all the time.
Yeah. I was going to say that for all of its faults, one of the things I really do like about 2014's Godzilla is that Gareth Edwards knows how to shoot Godzilla.
Yes.
And you see it here in this film. Godzilla should always be shot from the ground up so that he looks huge. And I think that's something they've lost since King of the Monsters, really, where you get a couple of shots, but a lot of the shots are kind of, you know, at Godzilla height, level. And you kind of lose some of that scale. And this film's got tremendous sense of scale. This shot in particular is wonderful. So of course, yes, the angry mob change their mind and run away.
Yeah, they all should. And I love it. It's like Dr. Yoe is there, like trying to take a picture and run at the same time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, as all good reporters should.
Yeah.
or paleontologists. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he's basically made landfall. He's no longer just a sea creature. He's on land now. And of course, Yamane then goes to Tokyo and presents his findings. And of course, they all laugh at him again.
I love those meetings. They're so funny. They're like that little. Like, everybody claps. Everybody's like sort of like respectful for the most part. It's like they're brilliant.
Yeah,
little town meetings.
Yes, yeah. So he obviously presents his evidence, and at first they disbelieve him, but then of course there's a photo. He's like, well, here he is. Here's Godzilla.
Here it is. And it explains about the trilobite and the radiated sand and that he's carrying.
So he comes to the conclusion that Godzilla has obviously existed on the seafloor, deep in the seafloor, but has been disturbed by the hydrogen bomb testing. And that's what's basically brought him to the surface. So there's then the debate around... I think everyone agrees that this needs to be made public, but there's debate around what they should say about whether they should mention about the nuclear side of things, the atomic testing side of things, whether they need to keep the radiation a secret. But, you know, everyone agrees we need to tell people about this giant monster, but do we really want to say what caused the giant monster?
It'll be bad for business and bad for this and bad for that. And then I love the little the between the woman counsellor and the guy
who just agrees with everything she says.
And she's calling him a crackpot and telling him that we should tell the truth. And I love a brilliant little bit of dialogue that is. I love that. That's probably one of the funniest moments in the actual film. Actually,
it's probably the only moment of levity, really. is this scene where it's really funny. But yeah, I think then a load more ships just get lost at sea. At this point, it's kind of like the Bermuda Triangle. Don't go that way.
Like 15 or something. He said we've now lost like 15 ships. It's like bloody hell.
Yeah, they lose a lot of ships.
So they take the decision to
send more.
Send more and use depth charges to destroy Godzilla. It's like, what? How is that gonna work? It's like, if a nuclear weapon didn't kill him, how is depth charges gonna fucking work?
Yeah, absolutely. And Yamane says after this point about that, he's like, well, he survived H-bomb testing. I don't think you're going to kill him with depth charges. But yeah, so they send frigates out.
We also established that Dr. Yamane is the only one who wants to, like, keep him alive and study him, because he says it's a great opportunity to see a ancient life and study it, and it shouldn't be killed. And everybody else is like, no, kill the fucker.
Yeah, and I mean, even Ogata, who wants permission to marry Emiko. Now, Emiko is in an arranged, or going to be in an arranged marriage with Serizawa. That she wants to get out of because she's in love with Ogata. And Ogata, despite being there just to try desperately to get in Mr. Yamane or Dr. Yamane's good graces and try and see if he can get permission to marry Emiko, who's already been promised to Serizawa. He stands up for himself, and he says, "No, like, I have to disagree with you. Like, Godzilla is a massive threat. We can't ignore Godzilla. We need to, something needs to be done with it." And of course, Yamane gets very angry and sort of says, "Get out of my house."
Stomps off.
So yes, I believe they track the radiation, don't they? And then they drop depth charges onto the radiation.
Yeah.
And it's believed that Godzilla's dealt with. They're like, it's done. No more problems.
It's fine. We're all good.
And then we of course get the it's like a ferry or something, isn't it? With some like party goers, and I think we saw them previously earlier in the movie.
I think the couple were on the bus, I think, or on a tram at one point.
Yeah,
and somebody says about evacuating the city, and she says something along the lines of like, "Will you take me with you?"
Mm.
And then we see them on this like this sort of pleasure cruise.
Yes,
and you do sort of think, why the fuck are you all on this boat? You are all mental.
I know, because I'd be like, well, you don't know that he's dead. You're assuming. Like, I think I'll give it a couple of days at least before I get on a boat. You know?
Yeah. Just some of the fallout might still be out there for one thing. You never know.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, yeah, of course. It's just crazy, but it having now actually being in a pandemic and seeing all of these airlines being like, yeah, we'll fly you abroad, don't worry about it, buy our cheap flights. It's like, I can kind of believe that they would. Fine. Of
course they would. Yeah, that's it, isn't it? It's always the way.
So of course, then we get Yamane thinking that, well, Godzilla is unkillable. As he tells the officials, he says, look, he survived the H-bomb testing. There is nothing we can do to kill this thing, and it needs to be studied.
Yeah.
And then we get Yamane's daughter, Emiko, who is going to see Dr. Serizawa, who, as you said, we were introduced to very briefly earlier, to basically break off their arranged engagement.
Yeah, I think there's a brief mention, I think, that he was in the war and he lost an eye.
Yes, because they mention his scarred face and whatnot, don't they?
Yeah, I think I think she said something along the lines of he came back like slightly different.
Yes, which is I can understand that.
Yeah, exactly.
So of course,
and she does tell Agata that she still loves him, but only as a brother.
Yes, and so she's kind of worked up the courage, and bear in mind, this is a big thing for Emiko to do this. Back then, this is an arranged engagement, an arranged marriage. Yeah. It flies in the face of tradition for her to do this. Yeah,
it's going against her father,
it's going against her father, it's going against tradition. She's going to go and see Serizawa and tell him in person,
And she's also taking a press guy who goes to see them.
Yes.
So a reporter says, "Oh, I need to see him. You can take me."
Yeah.
She's like, "All right, fine. It's like, give me another excuse to go see him."
But yeah, so she's going to do this, but then obviously the reporter asks to interview Serizawa, and basically he ends up. Serizawa is very defensive and cagey about what he's been working on.
He's cagey about what he's been working on. He doesn't want the report to know. He just says, I'm not really working on anything. And I'd rather not discuss it. And basically the reporter goes away with nothing.
Yeah. He basically completely refuses to say anything. But of course, once he's gone, Serizawa basically says to Emiko, "I want to show you something." So Emiko doesn't get her chance to kind of say, "I'm breaking up with you."
No,
she's taken down to his secret lab or basement area.
Yeah, it's like here's more signs that he's a villain.
Yeah, but he's not.
He's got a secret lab in the basement. He's a villain.
Yeah, he has. Yeah, so he has got a secret lab, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
It's great.
It's that classic
I love his lab.
Frankenstein style or even more than Frankenstein in some ways. It's a wonderfully designed lab, very 50s.
Yeah, it's got everything in there. It's got a nice little comfy chair, and he's even got a telly in there.
I know, the telly is well impressive, isn't it?
Yeah.
So he gives her a demonstration of his project after swearing her to secrecy. And see
what I like about this is we don't actually see a lot in this bit.
No, we just see her reaction. Really.
Yeah.
I mean, you can probably assume what happens, but you can just see the reaction.
Yeah, because I mean, he puts something in a fish tank, and basically
and then we hear the noise. We hear the noise.
Yes. And Emiko screams.
Yeah. And she's so traumatized she doesn't mention breaking up with him. She's just too traumatized.
And we actually cut to them leaving, which was so we get and he makes her promise that she won't tell anything. She promises she won't, and she leaves. Yeah,
and then of course we get our first big attack. Godzilla surfaces in Tokyo Bay. I think they see the news report, don't they, as they're leaving?
Yeah,
on the TV.
And is it they have mentioned? Yeah, they've said they're basically planning to ring the bay with electric pylons to catch him when he comes up, isn't it? Is at this point?
This is before that. I think he attacks Tokyo Bay first. He attacks the train and all of that, and then returns to the ocean. And then we get they kind of consult, don't they, and build the electrified fence. So he does his first attack, disappears back to the ocean, and then this is where we get the iconic shot of Godzilla with the train in his mouth and all of that.
Yeah, the miniatures are awesome.
Oh, it's tremendous, so absolutely. Tremendous.
I think I read somewhere about the guy in the suit saying that
Nakajima.
Yes, Nakajima, saying basically that he was a little worried because like one of those buildings cost like his monthly salary.
They basically didn't have the cost to reshoot anything. You had to do the first time round.
It basically just completely destroyed, and they'd go there and they'd spend hours and they'd basically get like a minute's worth of footage every day. It's like, bloody hell, that's absolutely amazing.
And I mean, that suit, hideously uncomfortable, really heavy.
Well, plastics were in scarce. Yeah, were scarce after the war over there, and the first suit was made of like a mixture of concrete. It was really heavy, absolute ton. It was,
and that was the second version, because the first version they made was completely unusable. And I think they use it for a few shots. I think that's the one with the skinnier arms. That was the original version they made, but they just realized it was just unwearable. Made this one a little better, but still
they kept that one. I think they kept that one for the feet shots,
feet and close-ups. I think they used a few with him. Using that suit. It was it was slightly over £230. Jesus Christ! But imagine wearing that for any amount of time, and also the heat the sweat.
He passed out all the time.
Yeah. There's a wonderful
with the camera, the lights and everything.
There is a wonderful advert, and it really annoys me because it's an advert for something like, I don't know, alcohol or something. But there's an incredible dedicated advert to Hiro Nakajima, and it's a really good. I'll try and find a link and send it to you. It's amazing.
I think I know the one you're talking about. I think I have seen that.
But I believe it was primarily played by Nakajima here, but also Katsumi Tezuka also played Godzilla in this film. There's two actors, both of which just ended up being like forever Toho monsters. I think Nakajima did like the first 12 Godzilla movies, and then I think Tezuka you're right, did loads of different stuff for Toho. I think he was in like Mothra and all sorts. So they were long time suit actors from this point on. I think Nakajima was like a stunt guy before that anyway. I think he did like Seven Samurai and a few other things.
There's a really great I think it must be a publicity shot of the actress playing Emiko, Mimiko Kochi, and she stood arm in arm with Godzilla holding an umbrella.
Shot. That's a wonderful shot.
It's such a great shot. I love that shot. It's fantastic.
It's absolutely terrific.
And she apparently was in one of the 90s one.
Yeah, she comes
back playing
for
the same character. Yeah,
she comes back for Godzilla versus Destroyer, I believe. Yeah, because all of this is one thing that kind of pretty much you can always almost no. I'm just trying to think if there are any other than Shin Godzilla. As far as I know, every Godzilla movie, they all pretty much, I think, say the first one's canon. Even if they ignore all other movies, they're almost always 54 happened. And,
yes.
You know, so all of the Heisei stuff,
it's like the Bible thing, isn't it? It's like that's
exactly.
where everything starts, no matter which version you're watching.
Pretty much, yeah. So there's always a 54 Godzilla. Then they ignore all of the rest of the Showa era, and then the movie they're making now. And obviously the Heisei era kind of continued on. So I think Godzilla versus Destroyer, she turns up as Emiko.
Yeah,
all of the actors turn up in other Godzilla movies
in different roles
this.
and stuff. Yeah,
yeah. But yes,
I think the guy playing Akito Hirata, who played the Dr. Shirazawa, I think he turned up in at least sort of 3 or 4 others.
Yeah, I think he's even in Final Wars and stuff as well. He was around for quite a few, playing various different roles. I don't think he ever. I don't think any of these, other than the character of Emiko, I don't think any of them turn up as those characters again. They turn up as other characters. Sorry. Yamane does. Actually.
Yamane turns up again.
He turns up in Raids again. Yeah, he does. Now that you mention it.
And I do know Raymond Burr turns up. I mean, he's not in this one, but he turns up in one of the later ones as well.
He turns up in Return of Godzilla, Godzilla 1984.
Yes.
He turns up in the American version of that, because obviously that was the next one that kind of made it big US splash, so they did their own version of it. And Raymond Burr turns up in that, and that I think is the one where he points at maps more than anything else. It's that one. So Godzilla returns to the ocean, and then, as you said, the Japanese consult with experts from around the world to construct these 50,000 volt fences.
Yeah,
that they build around the coast to try and stop and or kill Godzilla. And obviously, Yamane returns home like devastated that you know they're not going to study him because, amongst other things, Yamane thinks that, well, you know, although apparently scarred and somewhat deformed from the radiation, because obviously Godzilla is charcoal and burnt in his appearance, he has resisted radiation. So, you know, obviously with the history that Japan has, Yamane feels it's very important to study Godzilla's resistance to radiation.
Yeah, what they can learn about survival.
But of course, sorry, I was wrong. I'm just looking through the plot. I was wrong, actually. Sorry. So the Ogata Yamane argument happens here. Yeah. This is where Ogata says, we need to kill Godzilla, and Yamane is kind of disgusted and kicks him out of the house. It's actually here. I thought it was earlier in the movie for some reason, but it's not. So he gets kind of kicked out because basically Yamane says, you know, Godzilla, the benefits outweigh the danger that Godzilla poses.
Yeah, he's destroying us. We can't let him just destroy us.
Yeah, Ogata's like, you are a madman. Like, look at this thing. Look at what it's doing. And then, of course, Godzilla makes landfall again. I think it actually comes on the radio just after he kicks him out. And we actually get this the shot of the hand turning on the electricity, the electrified fence.
Yeah, you get all the you've seen all the tests and things, and you get all the shots of them in the power room, as it were.
So that the hand is actually Ishiro Honda's hand.
Yes.
And it was kind of symbolic of Ishiro Honda handing the movie over to Tsuburaya, who's now going to kind of carry the next part of the film, where it's all special effects. I think it was like kind of an in-joke on the set, where it was his hand flicking the switch and saying, okay, it's your movie now.
Here you
Off
go.
you go.
Yeah.
You know, my kind of story is done here.
Well, I know there's a story that I'm not sure whether it's true or not. It's the story of I think it was those two stood on some I can't remember where they said they were stood, but they were overlooking Tokyo, and they were planning on the route that Godzilla would come take. Up, of the attack. And I think people overheard them talking and reported to the authorities. And as they were leaving, they were stopped by basically the police, and we're questioned
on blowing up Tokyo
on what they were talking about.
Your plans to create a giant monster and stomp over Tokyo.
Yeah. I'm not sure if it's a true story, but it's a good story nonetheless.
Absolutely. So, of course, Godzilla resurfaces, and we get the first introduction of the atomic breath as Godzilla melts the electric fences. They were made of wax, apparently.
Yeah.
Made of wax and then melted with the lights of the studio, and I guess they heated them.
Yeah,
but it's convincing, especially in black and white. It looks really convincing.
You know what? That's what I was going to say. I think that's one of the greatest things about black and white is that it hides a lot of sins. It's very good at that, and I actually think it's one of the better looking uses of his breath when you see it come out.
It is.
There are some of the slightly later ones that look like really silly when
they're penciled on, some of the later
because it's exactly, it's literally just you can see the pencil marks, whereas this one I think looks pretty good.
I think it looks more menacing here than it pretty much does any other time in any Godzilla movie, because obviously later it became like a laser, the atomic breath, and I love that. It's like a beam weapon, and I love the look of that, and it's great. But I do think there's something almost worse about it not being this laser. It's like it's that atomic heat and that atomic.
It
just feels way more dangerous to me. It feels horrible, It feels like the kind of thing that's going to scar you and burn you, and it's not going to be an instant death.
It feels like the heat ray from War of the Worlds. Like
yes,
it's that sort of focused heat beam. That's. And I think that it works exactly as that, and I think it's a horrible, terrifying death if you were there.
And I think it's never kind of scarier than it is here, and rightly so, I guess.
And I think this is where we get the darkest moments as well. There are some.
This is like in any Godzilla movie I'm reasonably sure ever made. Certainly live action. This is the most devastation that Godzilla has ever done to Tokyo. He destroys all of Tokyo. I mean, it literally levels everything, including the Toho Theatre, which must have been terrifying for the people in the theatre. Like watching Godzilla, it'd be like, it'd be like going to see the Blob in the Blob Theatre, I guess.
Yes, yeah. But it's the scene where there's the mother and her three children, and she's holding them, and she says, "Don't worry, we will see your father in heaven soon." It's like, good God, Christ, that's a real kick in the bloody heart. That is.
And it only gets worse from there. Of course, that is a really moving scene. Obviously, it's insinuated the father probably died in the war, or when the bombs dropped.
That's the other thing we should also mention is that this is only 9-10 years away from the devastation of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which is why I think the devastation looks so real and convincing, because they saw it. They saw they saw how bad this was, that they lived through a thing like this. I mean, obviously not a giant monster, but they lived through the dropping of those bombs, and they saw the devastation, which is why they so I guess faithfully recreate it.
Yes, and it's no coincidence that obviously 2 bombs were dropped on Japan, and there are 2 attacks by Godzilla in this film. Or 2 major attacks, sorry. Obviously he appears and attacks boats, but in terms of the cities, he arrives twice, destroys twice. And I believe, I could be wrong, I'm pretty sure it's Honda. I think Ishiro Honda said that in his mind, Godzilla is not an allegory for the bombs. He is literally the bombs. as
Yes.
far as Ishiro
Yeah.
Honda's concerned.
Well,
and obviously the oxygen destroyer, which we will be introduced to soon, is the allegory for the bombs.
Yeah.
Godzilla himself is the bomb. Embodied.
He said that, you know, the thing about, you know, when he came up with the Godzilla idea was that he could have any sort of monster be a destructive force, but any sort of monster could be killed by a cannon or a cannonball. But with the bomb, there's nothing you can do.
Yes.
You can't fight that, and that's exactly what he wanted Godzilla to be, a rampaging force that you just can't do anything against.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, it's no coincidence that Godzilla's appearance is scarred. It's charred. It's like, you know, it's not scales, which they could have used. He looks like, and it's something they did to even greater effect, I think, in Shin Godzilla. But he looks like a burn victim.
Yeah,
he looks burnt. He's charred. Obviously, the American version coloured in green. But,
Yeah, well, sadly, he doesn't. Because of the black and white, you can't quite see it as obviously as that. It does look like it's just scales, but
yeah.
You know, if you know.
Yes, yeah. But the military counters, tries to stop him with tanks, and finally, I think eventually. I don't think they really succeed in driving him to the ocean. He just kind of gets bored and wanders off back to the ocean.
I mean, the electricity, I think, hurts him, but it doesn't.
Oh, it bothers him. Yeah, but it doesn't.
He just goes through it. And I love the scene of the reporters up on the tower, and they're reporting on his every move, and they're reporting on the devastation. And I love the fact that the guy just says, "We do not have time to move. He's coming right for us. We don't have time to run away. This is it, folks. Goodbye," sort of thing. And Godzilla munches on the tower and just completely kills them all.
Which again, the victims of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. There is no time and there's no escape from that. If you're there, you are screwed. There is nothing you can do. Those reporters kind of sum that up, that hopelessness of like, well, we're done for. There's nothing we can do. And obviously we see many, if not all, of the kind of Tokyo landmarks here destroyed.
Yeah, all of them completely. I mean, there's the shot when you look back and just before the reporters die. And he says, like, the whole city's on fire. You can just see the fire behind Godzilla as he comes towards us. Yeah. And that shot is fantastic. There's literally everything on fire.
Yeah. Like I said, it is, to my mind, the most destroyed Tokyo has ever been. Because it's funny how they always say, the media and I guess people always make fun of like, oh, Godzilla destroys Tokyo again. Which it doesn't really happen all the time.
No,
I mean he does destroy parts of Tokyo. He destroys other cities, attacks other cities. This is probably the only film I can think of where he completely obliterates a city. Like Tokyo is gone after this. So eventually he does return to the ocean. Not really because of any human intervention.
It is almost like bored now. I'm just going to have a nice sleep.
Yeah.
So off he stomps, and I love that he just like stopping as he goes to turn over the bridge.
Yeah, flip the bridge on my way out.
I think you get that shot of Dr. Yamane as he's seeing him retreat into the water, and he flips the bridge, and I think you do sort of then see that even Yamane is thinking, okay, maybe I was wrong about this.
He has literally flattened the whole of Tokyo, I guess. I probably have to accept now that I was wrong. So then we get even more harrowing the day after. We see the hospitals and shelters full of dying, maimed, injured people. And we get that horrible scene where... Sorry, go on.
Well, I was going to say you get that like the doctor with the Geiger counter.
Yes, I was going to say it's one of the worst parts is you've got these survivors and they think they're okay, and then you just see that Geiger counter flick up and you just know.
All he does is just shake his head and it's like, oh, fuck,
Jesus, Yeah. So
and you get the shot of the mother, the dead mother, and the little girl.
Yeah.
and they just basically take her off, and Emiko hugs the girl while she absolutely, breaks down.
Yeah,
it's like, wow, it's such a these scenes are so devastating, and they are well made,
and they're so raw, and just you can obviously, this is a country that was bombed with atomic bombs twice, in, like you said, 9-10 years ago, and you can feel it in these scenes. It is raw, it is terrifying, and it is absolutely hideous and horrible to watch. It's really it's like I've always said, there are two kinds of Godzilla movies, and there's very few of this kind of Godzilla movie, really.
No,
you get them varying degrees of seriousness, but this movie is so dark. Even like, I mean, Shin Godzilla's pretty dark, but it's got a lot more levity than this movie has. This movie has none. This movie is just dark the whole way through. Like you said, probably the only bit is the politicians arguing, and that's probably the only scene that's got any kind of real.
And I think with levity. Even with the difference between this feel, even though it's a monster movie, it feels like a real sort of thing. It feels like a real hideous, horrible thing that's going on. Whereas Shin Godzilla feels more at times like a fantasy, So it doesn't.
Does, yes, and
it doesn't have the same impact as
it doesn't. No,
this, and to be honest, I guess rightly so. I think it's they're different things. The world's moved on since then.
Yeah. And I mean,
we still not that we don't have those fears. We should still have those fears. But
absolutely, we should. I mean, I think even today, the fear of nuclear annihilation still weighs over everyone. There's always that in the back of your mind that could happen.
If I can't remember whether have you seen Chernobyl?
Oh yeah.
I mean that is.
I had to take regular breaks.
Yes, I remember.
I was like, I need a week off. Yes. I'll come back to this next week.
That is. Yeah,
I can't remember what I watched. I watched something really stupid immediately afterwards every time because I was like, I just need to kind of God.
Need a palate cleanser.
It's got a very similar feel to this, actually, in that kind of
it
hopelessness.
Does. Yeah, absolutely. It really does. It has a complete feel of the hopelessness of this, and like that scene with the Geiger counter and the children and the there is that in that series. The whole these people, when you see the fire. I mean, we know. A lot of us know what the devastating effects of these things are, but when you see those firemen at the beginning of the series go in, we all know those guys are dead. There is no way they survive.
The people I that's a slight tangent, but this Chernobyl. If you haven't seen it, watch Chernobyl as well, because that series is spectacular.
Really,
it's the stunning. Guys, which it's kind of. Well, it's weird because it's a scene that's kind of played for laughs in some ways, but in other ways you're just like, oh my god.
The miners, you mean?
The miners who just go in naked, they're just like, whatever. Yep. And it's played for laughs, but then you think about it and you're like, oh my god. Yeah. Like, oh my god.
What I love about that scene is that they're under no illusions. They're all saying, you need to wear protective gear. You need to wear protective gear.
And they're like, why? What's the point?
What
it's
is the
not
point?
Going to save us, is it?
We're hot. We need, this is how we work.
Well, and I think as well, they just know. They're like, we're not going to come out of this.
Of course they do. They completely know what's going on. That is such a great series.
Really
one of the best. I would strongly say that it's probably one of the best things that's been made, in the last 10 years.
Yeah, I'd say a good decade or so. In terms of a series, nothing's hit me harder than that show.
No. It's a phenomenal series,
and it does share that kind of feel, that hopelessness that we get here. So obviously, seeing the devastation, Emiko finally confides in Ogata. She breaks her promise, and she tells Ogata about Serizawa's research. Which is a weapon called the Oxygen Destroyer.
Yeah, and this is where you get the scene where actually they show you more of what she saw and what.
Yes, so we see what
did. She's keeping hidden. Which I think is a nice way of doing it. Most movies would have just done that in the first reveal. They would have shown you everything and you'd already know. But this actually takes its time.
It does.
I mean, something, but you don't know exactly
it
what.
takes its time with the monster, with Godzilla. It takes its time with the oxygen destroyer. It just takes its time. This is a wonderfully paced movie, by the way.
Yeah,
It's perfect.
absolutely.
It builds wonderfully. So it's
and
supposedly...
I think that's the other thing. I think, you know, the difference. Like one of my main complaints about the last Godzilla movie, the Godzilla, that movie,
2014.
Yes,
yeah.
One of my main complaints is that they spent too much time not showing us the Godzilla properly, but I think the difference is that we already know Godzilla by it. Then we know, you know, we're here more for the monster fights in that movie. It's not about the, you know, making a statement about nuclear war. It's not that. So there is a big difference between, you know, yanking away the monster and showing us little by little, you know, by increments in a movie that it's about the devastation.
Absolutely. And there's a big, like you said, there is a big difference when we're when we're talking monster versus movies. I just want to see the schlock. I just want to see the monsters fighting each other.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
literally what I'm on board for. And I love all of those Godzilla movies. I love this movie. They're completely different things. And it's weird. I think a lot of people just associate Godzilla with fighting other monsters and guys in suits. And I think they would be shocked if they went back and watched the original Japanese Godzilla, because it is dark.
Yeah.
This is a film with a message, and I think it conveys that message perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing bigger than the gap between this movie and those, you know, is it the Show era ones?
Yeah.
The big dumb silly ones where he dropped
by the 70s
drop kicks and the 70s ones. There's no bigger gap than between those ones.
No. And yet we kind of love them all for their various
we do.
reasons.
I kind of hate the whole flying Godzilla thing.
I love it. I love it.
It's ridiculous and stupid, but I kind of love it. It's just
then Godzilla was a children's icon.
Weird. Yeah.
It really was. It was more closer to Ultraman than it was anything else at that point. It's just it's for kids, and that's fine. But here it's something very different. So the oxygen destroyer, as it's known, supposedly disintegrates oxygen atoms and causes any organisms to die of rotting asphyxiation, which sounds like the worst fucking way for anyone to go.
Yeah, it does not sound good.
Absolutely hideous way to go. So
basically just leaves bones.
Just leaves bones, yes, which might later be used to build Mechagodzilla in a later film. But we won't talk about that now. So Emiko takes Agata to see Serizawa.
Yeah.
Sorry, you were going to say?
So no. So I was just going to say that what you just said.
Oh, okay. So obviously, Emiko is very apologetic, very upset that she felt she had to break her promise, betray Serizawa's trust in.
And of course, he says, "I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. I've never heard of such a thing."
Mm-hmm.
And he he leaves them to go to his lab, and there's a scuffle. And I actually quite like the fact that you don't see the scuffle.
No, we just see the result of the scuffle.
You go to the tank, and you hear it through the the sounds of the scuffle, and then you see.
Because this is not an action movie.
Yeah, no, exactly.
This is not an action movie. It's not a fight movie or it's not even, you could argue it's not really a giant monster movie when you get down to it. It's not, that's not what it's really about,
No.
So yeah, you get that. I love that. The shot of the fish tank with the sound of the scuffle. And then of course we see Agata bleeding from his head, where obviously he's been pushed into something or fallen or been hit.
Yeah.
And Emiko bandages him as Serizawa basically apologizes. He said, "Look, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But I'm not willing to let anyone know how the oxygen destroyer works or how it's made until it can be used for good. At the moment, they will use it as a super weapon."
Yeah, the only application for it right now is destruction.
Is destruction, which was not his point. I guess we get the impression that he came across this by accident while trying to find something else, while trying to invent something else. He's come across this horrible weapon, and much like the scientists involved with the
Oppenheimer bomb. and that
I mean they've created something that is absolutely hideous, but it's something that can solve, end the war,
the immediate
end
problem,
Godzilla, end whatever. I think this is what Honda meant when he said, Godzilla is not an allegory for the bombs. He is the bombs. And I think the Oxygen Destroyer is the allegory for the atomic bomb. It's we now have this scientific breakthrough, but it's devastating, and people will only use this as a weapon. But luckily, Serizawa has a very fancy TV in his laboratory, and he sees, obviously the absolute devastation caused by Godzilla upon Tokyo, and the hundreds of thousands of people dying and dead. So Serizawa accepts, but he burns all of his notes.
Yep, he burns all of his research notes. He burns all the plans.
And Amiko breaks down crying, which I always took to mean she kind of knew where this was going. To be honest, because she knows Serizawa, and I kind of always got the impression she knows how this is probably going to end now.
Yep, I think so too.
Because previous to this, Serizawa actually said, they will always get this out of me somehow.
Yeah,
they can always break me. They can. I'm only human. They will get this secret from me if I let this out.
Yep.
So a naval vessel takes Agata and Serizawa to Tokyo Bay, where obviously again they track the radiation. They find Godzilla where he's resting.
Yep.
And Serizawa.
He says he'll go on it. He says he'd go on his own, and Gata says,
no chance.
There's no way. You're not a diver. You can't do this. So there's a brief argument, but he agrees that they should both go down.
Yeah.
In diving suits together.
And they do. They find Godzilla taking the oxygen destroyer. Now apparently, it was so fucking hot on the boat in those suits. And they kept getting water and stuff to try and cool them down. But I think quite comically, Hirata, I believe, said that he was half tempted to, I think he's quoted as saying he was tempted to throw the oxygen destroyer onto the deck to put all of them out of their misery. Because it was just so bloody hot filming that scene.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so of course they take the dive, they head down, but as he's releasing the oxygen destroyer, he of course cuts his air, the line providing him with air.
And he says to Agata, like make her happy, doesn't he? He says,
he knows what's going on, and he's like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So he takes the secret to his grave. He drowns, and then we get this scene, and I think this scene is just as important, because although Godzilla is an unstoppable thing in this movie, it's never in question. From the moment Godzilla turns up, he's going to be killed. He's going to be killed, whatever happens. And again, this movie also on this level, this like, we will destroy nature, we will destroy everything. This scene, I think, is equally as heartbreaking. The sound that Godzilla makes when he rises from the ocean for this last time, and obviously combined with the description and what we know this thing does, it's just absolutely hideous. So he kind of rises to the ocean one last time, makes some pained roars, and then basically sinks to the bottom, where he basically is eaten away until he's just bone.
Yeah, he disintegrates.
Everyone mourns Serizawa's death, with Yamane then saying, we may have killed Godzilla, but
there's nothing. You don't get a big celebratory affair, do you? You didn't, like you would in most of the other Godzillas. You get a massively somber, hats off moment where it's like, we did our job and
yeah,
we lost a good scientist, and
and then Yamane laments that we may have stopped Godzilla here, but if weapon testing continues, there will be another Godzilla.
There are other
in
Godzillas.
The
Yeah, there are other Godzillas out there.
And a year later, there was another one. But
yeah.
But yeah, it ends on a very somber tone. This is a very somber movie. Certainly, I wouldn't say it's necessarily my favorite Godzilla movie, but I would say it's undoubtedly the best Godzilla movie.
Yeah, I think
that's maybe one of the best, if not the best film ever made, in my opinion. It's in my top 5 and very close to number 1, if not number 1, often. Our top 5s, top 10s are very fluid.
Yeah, I think if you were to say, if someone said, what Godzilla movie should I watch, and I
54.
I would say, well, depends on what you're after. But
sure.
I would, if you never see any other Godzilla movie, just see this one.
Yes, absolutely. This is the one to see if you're only watching one. But again, it depends what you want. If you want your Monster Mash stuff, then Mothra versus Godzilla or something like that.
This is not the movie for you.
No. I'd say Mothra versus Godzilla, or Godzilla versus Biollante, or GMK, something like that. But if you want a message, if you want a serious movie, the best, in my opinion, giant monster movie. Next to maybe Kong's a close second, but this movie is absolutely faultless, in my opinion. There is nothing I can say that's negative about this film.
No,
I really can't.
Of course, it has its flaws. All movies do. But
it was made it was made on a budget, and it's
Yeah, I mean, when this came out the same year as Seven Samurai, I mean,
yeah.
It had a lot of competition that year, and Toho did well that year. I think they had this, that, and another samurai movie which I forget the name of. But it was, and I think they said that it's like 11% of all Japan watched this movie when it came out.
Yeah, I think they say to this day that Haru Nakajima is like the most famous actor in Japan. It's just that most people have never seen what he looks like.
Yeah, they don't know what he looks like.
He's in the suit. But an absolutely stunning film, Godzilla 1954, and quite rightly, I think it is. It's the best Godzilla movie, the best giant monster movie I'm aware of. It's just fantastic, and it started, pretty much. I think started modern tokusatsu.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, from this to all those. I mean, how many is it? 30 odd sequels. It's like
36 now. 30. Yeah, if you take into account the animated ones as well, I think we're up to around.
It's
36, 37 maybe.
It's like the longest running movie series, I think, isn't it?
I would imagine so. Bond might give it a. Actually, no. Even Bond doesn't go that high, does it? How many Bond movies?
No.
No, especially if you're taking into account the 3 animated movies on Netflix as well. Yeah, we're into a lot of movies now. And rightly so. It's
it's a fantastic thing. And I'm so glad that that Godzilla is as it is, because like the actual word Gojira is like gorilla whale.
Yes.
And that really doesn't sound anywhere near as impressive, does it? Gorilla whale.
I think it's both words put together, but yes.
Yes, it is. But when somebody says gorilla whale, you just think, that just sounds a bit mental.
It does, yes. I believe originally they came up with a design that was said to be too human-like. So they were told to kind of change it, which is when they were like, the gorilla whale combination seems to work.
Yeah. And one of the ideas, I think, actually had a mushroom cloud for a head.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
Which would have been weird.
There is a
probably
monster.
Not quite as
There is
impressive.
A monster with a mushroom cloud for a head. I don't think it's in Godzilla. I think it might be like Ultraman, or maybe even Super Sentai or something. But I can remember there is a monster with a mushroom head. Mushroom cloud head. But I couldn't tell you what he's in.
No, No.
But yes, I mean, it's just it's a stunning film, and everyone needs to see it.
Yep, couldn't agree more.
Yeah, amazing film. So that's pretty much it from us. And of course, we will be back next week as always. But yes, do watch Godzilla. It's an amazing.
Yeah, give it a go. You know, I know a lot of people have problems with watching, you know, black and white movies and stuff, but you'll be surprised how brilliant it still holds up as a fantastic movie. It's great paced.
Yes.
You know, it's beautifully filmed. It's a great movie. And yeah, just give it a go.
And as you said quite rightly, the being in black and white benefits this movie so much. In the same way I've always said with the first Universal horror run, it looks fantastic to this day because it's in black and white. And when the Universal horror movies moved into color, it started looking worse than before. You know, it was like when it was in black and white, it actually looked better. Now that it's in color, it starts looking a lot more kind of tacky and silly. And I think that's the same here. And of course, a lot of people saw King of the Monsters colorized version of Godzilla. Which is just horrible. It's not the way to see it.
I don't think I've ever actually seen the colorized version.
I don't.
I mean, I've seen clips, but I don't think I've ever seen the actual film.
I've seen
colorized.
Clips. Of course, they famously color Godzilla green, which is the wrong color for Godzilla.
Yeah.
Most of the time, unless it's like Hanna-Barbera. It should generally be charcoal. For the most part, anyway. Occasionally green, but very rarely. So yeah. I don't really know what else to say about it.
I think we've said it all.
Fantastic, you're right. It's in the Guinness Book of Records as the longest running film franchise in history. So you're absolutely right. Yes, it's one of the greatest films ever made. So go watch it. But in any case, take care, stay safe, and we will catch you next time.
Bye.